This is a design that Alexis Kellum created in a previous video. Alexis created this design by hand placing and hand stamping colored bars on the stage. Once you've worked out a design like this, you can develop a script based on the pattern that you've created. Once we've created a pattern, we can recreate that same pattern with a script by analyzing the elements involved. And in this case, we have two background bars, we have some vertical bars, and then in the foreground we have some horizontal bars. So I'm going to clear the screen, and let's recreate one of those elements, in this case a vertical stripe bar, which we'll draw. And this is created by making a solid bar of one color and then moving over some amount, and then creating another solid bar of a slightly different color. I've used some inputs that were obtained from the Colors and Crayons library. There are a number of other utilities that are already built into the Snap libraries, and in this case the color input allows me to specify the color of a bar just by using this as an input. So I could, for example, do a slightly different color if I wanted, just like this, or if I wanted it to be green, I could make a green bar. In this case, we're going to replicate the design that Alexis created. So we'll create the bar, and then if we select pen trails, when we go over to costumes, you can see that I've created all three elements, the background bars, the vertical bars, and the horizontal bars that can be used to create the design. Now that we've got those elements, we want to figure out how we can make these, and of course one way that we could do this is we could switch to the costume vertical bar, and then we can just replicate that pattern like this. And so now we're starting to take advantage of the fact that there's some symmetry and regularity in this pattern. I could even make a procedure to essentially do this. In this case, I've essentially taken this same switch to costume, but I've made it easy for me to experiment with different numbers and different spacing. So I can go back to the beginning and clear, and then make some other spacing. I could make it 6 that were separated 70 apart. And by playing around like this, I can determine the precise number that I might want to include in my design. One of the advantages of doing this with a script as opposed to hand placing it is that it gives us a lot of freedom to experiment very quickly. So now let's clear this and come back to the beginning, and then try 4. And since that's fairly close to what Alexis did, we'll stay with that. So this in turn can be transformed into a script to stamp the vertical bars. And in this case, what we've done is go to a certain spot, stamp a series, and then go to a second spot and stamp a series. So if we clear, we get something like this. So as you can see, we're building small scripts that gradually build up whatever we're trying to do. And eventually, if I clear the screen, I can stamp the background, and then I can stamp the vertical bars, and then I can stamp the horizontal bars. So that if I put it all together, I then have something like that. And this gives me a lot of freedom to explore and to create different designs. If I want, I could use a different color scheme, different spacing, different placement. But the bottom line is that once you work out a design by hand, placing and hand stamping the bars, you can then look for the regularity in the patterns that you've created and use that to create an algorithm or a pattern that creates a script.